about to hear is by way of research done by many who have had to surmount the numerous obstacles put in their path, possibly put in place to inhibit our way of thinking and to stop us deciding for ourselves how we wish to live. Above all, keep your mind open.
Well, a very current story, as I've been saying tonight, to do with the conspiracy theory, all to do with Macca. Paul is Dead is an urban legend and conspiracy theory suggesting that Paul McCartney of the English rock band The Beatles died in 1966 and was secretly replaced by a look-alike. In September 1969, American college students published articles claiming that clues to McCartney's supposed death could be found among the lyrics and the artwork of the Beatles recordings. Clue hunting proved infectious and within a few weeks had become an international phenomenon. Years prior to the Millennium Report website going online, one of their writers conducted exhaustive research into the Paul McCartney is Dead conspiracy. It is, in fact, a real conspiracy because of the number of willing participants who, by necessity, had to participate in it in order for it to be successful for almost 50 years. However, only one element has been missing over the last 49 years, and that is a member of the Beatles stepping forward to tell the secret. According to an article published in the last couple of days, it appears that the secret has now been told by Ringo Starr. And there is now a massive body of forensic proof, anecdotal testimony, scientific photographic analysis, circumstantial evidence, etc. on the internet which supports Ringo Starr's alleged recent revelations. As for why the Beatles agreed to go along with the so-called cover-up scheme since 1966, the answer, especially if you were living during the 1960s and had sisters who could sing every single Beatles song with perfection, is fairly obvious. Paul McCartney's death would have triggered an unprecedented shock to his millions of young and often delirious female fans around the entire world. For a better explanation of just how traumatic such a shocking revelation would have been in 1966, the following is actually a true story. During the Beatles, and I quote, performance at Shea Stadium, which kicked off their 1965 US tour, the massive contingent of New York City policemen, who were assigned to crowd control, reported rivers of urine which flowed from the girls and young women in attendance. They were in such genuinely altered states. They were so excited and beside themselves that they were literally unconscious to controlling their bodily functions. MI5 and MI6, together with the British monarchy and Parliament, apparently had to make a very swift command decision to hide the death of Paul McCartney. Now we go to Beverly Hills. The former drummer of Beatles, Ringo Starr, surprised the world during an interview in his luxurious Californian residence when he admitted that the 45-year-old rumours about the alleged death of Paul McCartney in 1966 were actually true. In an exclusive interview with The Hollywood Inquirer, and I'd like you to keep that in mind, The Hollywood Inquirer, right? Mr. Starr explained that the real Paul McCartney had died in a car crash on November the 9th, 1966, after an argument during a Beatles recording session. To spare the public from grief, the Beatles replaced him with a man named William Shears Campbell, who was the winner of a McCartney lookalike contest and who happened to have the same kind of jovial personality as Paul himself. When Paul died, we all panicked, claims Ringo, obviously very emotional. We didn't know what to do, and Brian Epstein, our manager, suggested that we hire Billy Shears as a temporary solution. It was supposed to last only a week or two, but time went by and nobody seemed to notice, so we kept playing along. Billy turned out to be a pretty good musician, and he was able to perform almost better than Paul. The only problem was that he couldn't get along with John at all. William Shears Campbell, better known as Billy Shears, does indeed disappear from records in 1966, and no traces of him can be found after Paul's alleged death. We felt guilty about the deception, added Ringo Starr. We wanted to tell the world the truth, but we were afraid of the reactions it would provoke. We thought the whole planet was going to hate us all for the lies that we had told, so we kept lying but sending subtle clues. When the first rumours finally began about the whole thing, we felt very nervous and started fighting a lot with each other. At some point, it was too much for John and he decided to leave the band. Ringo Starr claims that he finally decided to tell the truth because he was afraid that it was going to die with him. At age 74, he is the only other surviving member of the famous band besides Paul McCartney, and he was afraid the deception would never be revealed. Neither Paul McCartney nor anyone from his entourage have commented on Ringo Starr's declaration yet, but the interview has already provoked a lot of reactions around the world. Journalists and paparazzis from around the world have surrounded the residence of the musician only minutes after the interview was broadcasted and are awaiting for the star to comment on allegations. According to Ringo Starr's Facebook page, which I have been looking at, he has been on tour for the last couple of weeks or so, and so how could the interview have been done from his home in the USA? Secondly, the Hollywood Inquirer that I referred to earlier on doesn't actually exist. Thirdly, Tony Rivers, who you would have heard being interviewed here on the Sunday Brunch last weekend, knew Macca very well in the early 60s and then met with him several times in the late 60s and early 70s and was recognised by Paul each time. If he wasn't the real Paul, then how did he know who Tony was? Lastly, just to confuse things, I am a portrait artist personally, and so I have a great sense for detail. And the one thing that I did find on comparing an early 60s photo of Paul with short hair to the mid-70s photo, one which also showed his ears, because that's what I was comparing, they are a telltale mark. Interestingly, it took me nearly an hour to find such a photo, as his ears were always covered by hair, but when I did, the ears were, in fact, quite different.